So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back once again to the Watch Show. That's right. We're here always. We try to bring you all the information that we learn. We want to bring it to you guys always. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. The channel will continue growing and we will be able to keep on bringing you unbelievable real content, the real thing. So please don't forget to do that for us if you can, and give us a big thumbs up, right, guys? Guys, I have something important to tell you because I see things, a little bit funny. And saludos, Meshuggahs, okay? Um, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I also have a watch market update for you guys as well. Um, Drink a little bit of water, to relax the body. But I have a good watch market update for you guys as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you first, the price of gold has been climbing up. It has been climbing up. It has been climbing up little by little, and is getting a lot of people, a little bit nervous out there. So I want to tell you first that the price of gold, the ounce price of gold, is at $3,477. I told you that the highest mark that gold has gone up to is to $3,505, and that was in April of 2025. And I see gold that is moving, it's moving and it's moving and it's moving, and then rhodium took off too. It's right now at $7,400 troy ounce as well. But the reason that I'm doing this live, podcast, así se dice, ¿verdad? Podcast. Live podcast is because, I don't know if you know this, I always try to bring in our knowledge, in our chapter 22, chapter 22 on how to become a Muppet Boiler Room secondary grade watch market dealer. I try to drop some knowledge, and knock some sense into myself and, and Kino, and to you, unbelievable recovering tomato cans. I try to bring you knowledge. And I don't know if you know this, ladies and gentlemen, but we had a president in this country. We had a president, that's right, Damon. We had a president in this country by the name of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Delano, they call him Franklin D. Roosevelt, but in reality, his middle name is Delano, like the Hotel Delano in Miami Beach, and Collins Avenue, Delano, the Delano Hotel. His name is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I don't know, this is something interesting because we're talking about gold, gold. Today we're talking about gold. I'm going to give you a watch market update, but first I need to explain to you something about gold. And maybe you guys can help me out and sweet cake Kino to me, Joaquin to you. So we have this president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. And ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. This is something unbelievable. When I sit down and I start reading, and I get lost in the book. I become like one of the people from 1933, I become like one of the people from 1933. But at the end of this story, I would have been revolutionary, a revolutionary. Aquí, un revolucionario como Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro, El Che, I would have been something big at that time, So the president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, eso es así, eso es correcto. He had something special for all the Americans. They had a transition from Hoover. Hoover If you don't know about, government history, when you were in high school, well, Hoover, was passing along the situation to Roosevelt, Hoover, Roosevelt. And so Mr. Roosevelt had an executive order, the 6102. An executive order, the 6102. It was signed on April 5th, 1933. I would have been there, I would have been jumping, I would have been there, throwing punches and everything. But you please try to understand where I'm going with this, it was signed on April 5th, 1933, forbidding the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Gold is going to the moon. Right now, gold is going to the moon, and you need to listen and pay attention to what I'm telling you, so you understand what these people of the world do. I'm telling you what's going on. I'm telling you, Damien, I'm telling you what's going on. This is serious business, and you need to pay attention. And it was also, within the continental United States, los lambones, los americanos lambones, the Americans were lambones in 1933, Listen to what I'm trying to tell you, where I'm going with this. This is no monkey business. This is for people with big brains. Unbelievable, And it's unbelievable, like I'm telling you, the price of gold today is at $3,477 a troy ounce. It's unbelievable. Kino, no te meta. Let me get some jungle juice. And ladies and gentlemen, this is crazy. So he did that executive order, that guy, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, And I'm telling you, they had the transition. Hoover giving it to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, And by May 1st, all holders of gold coins, gold bullion, and certificates were to deposit all that into the Federal Reserve, like sheeps, going into the slaughterhouse. If I would have been there, I would have been screaming, no, I'm not going to give my gold away. I'm not going to give it away. The people were walking like that. They were giving up all their gold. And they were giving them a promissory note, the government, $20.67 for each ounce. Para los lambones, Listen to me and learn. This is for free. For free. Unbelievable. And people giving up all their gold. I'm telling you, me and Kino would have been there. We would have been there screaming and saying, "Pa abajo, America!" Hey, no way, I'm going to give away my money, my gold, and I would have been fighting, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm just trying to make a story. You know what I'm trying to say. And ladies and gentlemen, it was a transition. I keep on telling you, it was a transition between Hoover and Roosevelt. And Hoover wanted to do something big. And he spoke to Roosevelt about the situation, and Roosevelt didn't agree with what Hoover was trying to do. So Hoover said, okay, you don't want to do it, I let America belly up. And, the crisis, you don't know about this, ladies and gentlemen. The financial crisis were unbelievable. People were going crazy in 1933. I'm telling you, I would have been there. I would have been a problem. I probably would have had my own people around me, I would have been somebody big at that time. I'm telling you, there was no way in the world I was going to give up all my gold, But these people from the government, is a big business. And the people gave away all their gold coins, their chains, unbelievable. This is an unbelievable time, ladies and gentlemen, It was called the confiscation. of the US 1933. You know, the people were going nuts. People were going crazy. And, you know, the reason they were doing is because they had crisis. That's what they say, you know, at that time. And, you know, I always think to myself, I always wonder, why didn't this result in a massive protest, you know, protesta, ¿verdad? Protests, you know, protests. Why didn't it become something big, you know? In America, people were going crazy. You know, they were getting all the gold from all these people, and people were just turning it in, ladies and gentlemen. Bobby, you need to be aware of what's going on. Today I was having lunch with those big boys, you know, big boss. And they were telling me things, you know, and I was thinking, and then my mind went crazy, you know. My mind started going crazy, and I started telling them things, and they were looking at me like I had 50 heads, you know. And I told them, hey, listen to me. You don't understand. These people over there in Pennsylvania Avenue and the ICA, you know, these people don't play around, you know. They don't play around. And I always thought to myself, you know, why wasn't it a massive protest? And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, why wasn't it a civil war? You know? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand why didn't el pueblo, you know, el pueblo de las Américas, why didn't they, you know, argue about this? Why are we giving you up? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you this, you know, this I'm gonna tell you this, and maybe you guys are not gonna believe me, but this was a national emergency, an executive order. And I'm gonna tell you this, and I don't need you to agree with me. I'm going to tell you what me and Sweet Kino were digesting today. We believe, because these people, the American people, the government people, they wanted to get all that gold, you know, and confiscate it from all the American people, you know, confiscated, you know, from Dr. Evil, you know, Damon, you know, Mr. Donut, Mr. Pete. You know, all those people giving you gold, confiscating it, you know. You're not allowed to have gold, and here's $20.67. Here's a note. And, you know, when the national emergency finishes, maybe you can we let you buy five ounces, you know. These people are unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you know, these people, es que es una jodienda. El presidente Hoover se lo dijo a Rubel. Se lo dijo a Rubel. You know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Or I have you guys lost? Because I'm kind of, you know, when I drink Jonko juice, I go crazy, you know? But I'm trying to tell you something. Absolutely. Oh, no, there you go. You heard what Dr. E said. El Dr. E está haciendo así y metiéndolo para adentro. Unbelievable. Te lo estoy diciendo, Tino. Es que esta gente son inteligentes. You see, that's a smart man right there, you know? He knows where I'm going with this story. Dr. E knows where I'm going with this story, you know? And I'm going to continue talking about this because I can tell that some of you understand what I'm talking about. So, you know, the government said, no, you're not supposed to have no gold. No, give it all to us. You know, here's a little note, 20 pesos, $20.67. You buy later on when the situation gets better in the world, in the country, in the crisis, you know. We had a transition of Hoover, you know. These people know it all. I'm trying to tell you this. If you go back in time, 1933 to 2025, it is the same mechanism that we have today. You didn't understand me? It's the same mechanism. You know, 1933, 2025. La misma maldad, the same. That's la misma maldad, the same way, you know? Exactly. They're just people, exactly. You know, the same way, you know? As a matter of fact, the one from 2025 are learning from the one of 1933. That's how it goes. So these people did this brillante, spotless, bro. These people were unbelievable. What an execution, you know? I'm talking about people walking, you know, to the Federal Reserve, you know, with all their gold and putting it in here. Give it to the Reserve, you know, Federal Reserve, all the gold, you know, give it away. And I'm going to tell you what that was because I'm stupid like that. I'm going to tell you. This is the best channel in the world. This is the best watch channel in the world. And you guys need to know about gold, what's going on. And I'm going to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was, does anybody know what I'm going to say? Un poquito de jungle juice. This is too much. You talk about Lehman Brothers, Bank of America, right? We talk about all that, you know, inside job. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm on fire today. If you're smart and you listen to me, you're going to learn something today. Unbelievable. You know, we talk about those people, Merrill Lynch, you know, the Rothschilds, all this, you know, esto es increíble. 1933, people were giving their gold up. It was the biggest thing ever. The biggest thing ever. How can the masses, you know, give up, you know, their gold, you know? Think about what I'm trying to tell you. This is for free. This is for free. Para que le entre agua al coco so water can go into the coconut. You know? I'm even giving it to you bilingual and everything. No monkey business here. Because I'm going to tell you what this was. Nobody has put it down what this was. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, we talk about the inside job. This was an execution. Papi, this was an execution in 1933, papi. Esto era, there's no computer, there's no iPhone, you know? Papi, you have to be geniuses, you know? You have to be, man, they have to have, man, you know? I don't even know they had a telex. I don't even know if they had a fax. I don't know what they had back then, but papi, this was brutal. I think this gentleman right here, I think his name is JD, maybe he can say something, you know, about this and help me out because I'm kind of stupid like that. I don't know too much. I just read, you know, and I'm trying to tell you what they did. I'm trying to tell you what they did. It's unbelievable, you know, que es increíble, you know, 1933, 2025, 2008, you know, it's unbelievable what these people did, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, you know. But I'm telling you, Hoover was telling him, mira, oh, you don't want to do nothing? Okay, I'll leave the country go upside down. The country went upside down. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you so you don't get restless. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the biggest United States heist in history. The biggest heist in U.S. history. You understand me? Does anybody want to write something? The biggest U.S. heist in U.S. history. The biggest. They took all the gold. They took it all, put it in their pockets, in the reserve, and then they say, now we're going to put the new numbers of the way gold is. We're going to put now what it costs now, you know? But they gave you lambones and palomos a little note that says, we're going to pay you $20.67 for an ounce. But that note was going to be, you know, worthless because now they had the gold in their power and they're going to say, I'm just saying a story, you know? You know, allegedly. They show me the word allegedly, so I keep on dropping it everywhere. Allegedly, The Americans say now we're gonna say it costs $40. What is your note? Your note is worthless. Papi, esto es increíble. This was an execution, man. This was an execution that you should feel proud. All of you, all you 18 right now, you should feel proud that me and Sweet Kid Kino, to me, Joaquin, to you, are telling you this. You should be, because ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing numbers of gold that have never been seen. $3,477. $3,477, ladies and gentlemen. And this is getting scary. This is getting scary because the more they collect that gold, the more they collect it, the more control they have. And if, like my friend, I don't want to mention his name no more, but my friend told me right now in this live podcast, he told me in a very, secretive way, not me, I'm hiding mines. I'm telling you, Bobby, what's going on. This is serious business. Remember, it's my job to inform you what I hear. If you look at Fort Knox, in Fort Knox, I'm telling you, I'm telling you this because some of you might disagree with me, and that's fine. I have always said this, and you know it already. I've been saying it for the last 6 months. To me, there's no gold in Fort Knox. To me, there's no gold in Fort Knox, and the situation is getting hairy. Hairy is getting hairy. Hairy, pelua, it's getting hairy. Because gold is moving up, papi. It's not budging down, it's moving up. And I'm telling you, if those people decide to tell the guy over there in Pennsylvania Avenue, the people, the ICA, if the ICA says, hey, and it hasn't been done since 1933. I'm only telling you what I believe, Dr. E, you got to be careful what you know what I'm trying to say. So you got to be very, very careful because gold, the more I think about it, the more I think about rhodium and gold, I think the one that's gonna, blow up for real is gonna be gold. I honestly believe it's gonna blow up. Está como una olla de presión, like a pressure pot, when you're putting something in a olla de presión, it's getting, you know what I'm trying to say, and these people are thinking and they're calculating what's going to happen. A pressure cooker. Thank you very much, Doctor. When you said Damon, Damon ese me ayuda a mí. He's unbelievable. He helps me out. It's unbelievable. It's a pressure cooker. It's about to blow up, man. It's about to blow up, and and now they're saying, because this is the way they treat us. This is the way they treat us. If you hear the news now, when we used to have the other president, he wasn't feeling well healthy wise. The other president, he wasn't feeling good. He had gases. They say he was walking around with Pampers. The other president. But ladies and gentlemen, this is how they work. Now, that was the blue guy. Now they're saying that the red guy also is, gases, and he has staining his pants. This is, papi, this is a big show. It's a big show, like the Wizard of Oz, the wizard, the wizard, he was behind the curtains. It's unbelievable. Now they're saying that guy, the red guy, he's also staining his pants and he's not feeling well. And you have the other guy talking about him, all these people it's a distraction. So you look that way, why they go that way, You understand what I'm trying to say? They know that. They know that we are, papi, they know that we're palomos, you know? They know we're lambones, somos lambones. They know that. They know that, you know? And we eat all that news, you know? If you're from the blue team, you know, you saw the poor guy is falling down, running. He can't go up the stairs in the plane. He falls down. And the red guy comes in too now. He's staining his white pants with, you know, with shit, you know? It's a big, you know, it's a big subliminal message to get you not to look at nowhere. You know, like the horse in the Kentucky Derby, you know? He runs that way. This is how we are. But you're lucky you got me for free. For free you got me, you know? It's unbelievable, you know? You imagine what these people did to those people in 1933? And this can happen again. If they say this is an emergency crisis, and they know those people, like those people that I told you that have 20 kilos of gold, they know who they are. They know who they are because they went to buy it in la fregadora, you know, in the gold place. You know, you go to the gold place and you buy it. You know, you give all your information, your license. You know what I'm trying to say? They know anything about you. They know who you are. You know, I'm telling you what's going on. What you're getting from me for free is a bargain. You know, it's for free. No, wait, no, for free. None of those Mosheganos are going to tell you none of this. They don't have the capacity to tell you these things, man. You know what they're thinking about? They're thinking about the Montclair sweater, you know, their Supreme hoodie, you know, their Nike Louis Vuitton sneakers. That's what they're thinking about. You know, their sushi dinner. You know that guy that charged $17,000 for a steak dinner? He's in bankrupt, you know? And bankrupt, he's over. The party is over. You know, burning people with his show. You know, the guy, and putting sugar or salt, whatever that is, you know, all over the place. They're suing the guy for, I don't know how many, allegedly, I don't know how much they're suing him for because he burned a lady's hair, too much spray. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. What I bring you guys for free, it's unbelievable, man. Not even Johnny Carson can bring you what I bring you for free. Not even Carson. Unbelievable what I'm bringing you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, you got to stop maintaining these people's lifestyle. You know, they see you as mashuganas, you know, manishma to all of you, you know, buenasera, saludos, ¿cómo estamos? La situación está jodida, ladies and gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to have to say it. I'm going to have to say it. Mr. Blair, welcome to the show. Mr. Blair, welcome to the show. This is why I told you yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen. I told you that in my time, you know, in the late 70s, you know, 77, 78, 79, we had some good pot. We had some good weed. But it was organic, you know, it was, you know, planted in the backyard, and we had a 2 and a 4% THC. What they're giving these dumb skis out there today, I learned from my friends, you know, I learned from, I don't know who it was, I don't want to mention names, but I heard from my friends yesterday that I was wrong. Not on 19% today, you know, not on 19% of that cannabis, or whatever you guys want to call it, just they don't call it no more marijuana. You know, marijuana was a nice name, marijuana, you know, pot, you know, fuma, smoke, you know, Woodstock, you know, stick, you know, sticky, whatever you want to call it. But it was a 2 and a 4% THC. What these people are downing on you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe me. Ganja, you're not going to believe me, Papa. They told me yesterday, one subscriber told me that it's a 30%. Listen to this, 30%. Then another one told me 37%. And right now, somebody is telling me a 60%. Papi, the people are walking around stupid. You know, you can't teach stupid. The more stupid they get you, the less you're going to ask. Listen to me. They don't want critical thinkers. They do not want critical thinkers. They want lambones y palomos. You understand me? They don't want critical thinkers. They don't want you to think. They want to do all the thinking for you. And right now, Sweet Kino, to me, Joaquin to you, and me, we're being critical thinkers for you guys. You know, I'm telling you what it is, ladies and gentlemen. They want puppets. You know, if they know you're a critical thinker, you're in trouble. Like an example, so you understand me. Right now, I don't know how many of you are here. Right now, you 22 don't have a problem, you know, because you're there. You're just, you're just audience. You're watching me. The one that has a problem is me, because I'm awakening you guys. I am awakening you guys for free, because I'm stupid like that. And what do I get in return? I get this deep. Because I'm putting my face out there. Maybe you find it funny, but it's not a funny thing, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want. This is why I'm telling you, I had another person today that wrote to me, and you're not going to believe this. He told me that it was like a 90% potent, potent, 90%. Let me see if I see him here. Ladies and gentlemen, like a 92% potent. You take that, some people say that they can take that and they can still function through life. That's unbelievable. It's just like the alcoholics. They're functional alcoholics out there. They can go to work, they can have a family, but they're functional alcoholics. You know what I'm trying to say? Papi, listen to what I'm trying to say. Because they say, well, I smoke pot and it's 95%, bam! But I can function. I work. I take my kids to school. I do this, I do that. That's because you're functional. But everybody is not that lucky to be like you. You got people out there, but this is, man, what they're giving you people out there who are doing that, oh my God. Well, they're giving people out there, man. They can't be critical thinkers, man. They cannot be critical thinkers, Papi. I'm trying to, listen to me. I gotta behave because they just sent me. Are you guys there? I got an electric shot. They pulled already. You saw that? It's too much, Papi. Too much. I'm telling you, they're gonna call me from Netflix. They're gonna call me from Netflix, and I'm gonna deny. No, I don't want no part of that. How do you know so much? How do you know so much? I don't want no part. It was just my imagination, That's what it was. Look, you out there, I'm sorry what I'm saying, Please don't shut me down. I'm doing this for free. And my audience of 30 subscribers, they only give me this, So, please take it easy. I haven't done nothing wrong. So they don't want critical thinkers. And this is why they are, dumbing down, they're dumbing down on all of us. And we have to be strong, and prepare. I wanted to tell you more, but I can't because I'm telling you what's going on. I think I needed to do this part 2 because I couldn't leave it that way, And Kino has told me, Kino's here today, and Kino has told me. He says to me, he calls me cuz. He says, cuz, I don't know how you know about that, but it's true. I'm sure that what you had back then in the 70s and the 80s, you know, a 2 and a 4% was like having a Bud Light, you know? In reality, it was like having a Bud Light. You know, those people over there in Woodstock throwing the peace signs, you know, and the bandanas and the flowers, you know, and all that good stuff. Those people were doing a 2 and a 4% THC. What these animals are getting today, Papi, is brutal, man. Again, you know, in all defense to all the ones that could, withhold that kind of potent. You can do it and you can function. That's beautiful. The same thing with alcohol. The same thing, whatever it is. If you can handle it, no problem. But let me tell you, not everybody can handle that. Me dan un pitillo de marihuana de 37%. You give me a 37% potent, cigarette. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Entonces, this is why they don't want critical thinkers out there. They don't want you thinking outside the box, man. They don't want you thinking outside the box. They want you there. You know? They want you, when they do this, come on, give in all your gold. You go walking and you give in all your gold. You see, Dr. E, there's no way. There will be a cold day in hell before he gives up his gold. You know? It's unbelievable, but true. I know what I'm trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I've been thinking about this the whole day, and I talked to Kino. Should I bring this up to them today? Should I let them know about the executive order, of 1933, the 6102 by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the transition between Hoover and Roosevelt? Should I tell them about this? And Kino was saying, I don't know. I don't know if they're ready for this, I don't know if they're ready for this. Are you guys ready for this? Do you guys want to soar with the eagles, or do you want to crawl with the rats? You want to soar. Unbelievable. I'm telling you what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. You want to soar with the eagles, or you want to crawl with the rats. Let me tell you something. The day this channel explodes, it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be unbelievable. It's like you guys are going to have stocks in this channel. You recovering tomato cans are the original ones, and you guys have stock in this channel. But I need to tell you this so you guys get prepared, because something big is happening. When the fake news is telling you that the blue guy was walking around with Pampers and shitting his pants, and now the red guy is walking around with Pampers and shitting his pants, it's a distraction. It's a total distraction. Look, somebody just finished putting here, weed is terrible for you. Let me tell you something. Doc, make Florida. Let me tell you something. You're right. But in my time, a 2 and a 4% of THC was nothing. It was like a Bud Light. It was like a Bud Light. You understand me? It was like a Bud Light. Thank you very much, Dr. E, for that wonderful super chat. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. In reality, guys, that gets me going. Even if you give me 50 cents, a quarter, I get happy, because it shows me that you appreciate, I'm just telling you that, it makes me happy. Thank you very much to all of you, and to all of you that are here too live. That even makes me even more happy that you guys are here. Thank you very much for that super chat. Thank you all for being here. And if I'm boring you guys, if I'm getting you bored, please bear with me. I'm wrinkled. I'm wrinkled. I'm not pressed like Lehman Brothers. Like Lehman Brothers, that, with tie and a nice shirt, a nice suit. Me, I'm wrinkled. I give it to you the way it is, and you try to figure it out. But the situation, Papi, is very, very dangerous out there. Very dangerous. Things are happening all over the place. People are doing things. People are moving around, shifting back and forth. Things are happening. And I'm telling you, listen to me. I just feel like I'm telling you, I don't understand how these people in 1933 did not do a protest. It's the word protest. Protesta. Una protesta. Thank you very much, P, for that super chat. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. It really gets me, thank you very much. I don't understand why these people didn't do a protest, in 1933. That's, a protest is something normal. If it would have been me and Kino, we would have been shackled up. We would have been shackled up because we would have gone into a civil war. There was no way in the world I was going to give my wife's gold and watches and rings and necklace. That was crazy, ladies and gentlemen. It was, and I think about it. How was it they did that in 1933? I asked myself this question, and we have a lot of professional people in this channel right now. Were people who were at that time in 1933, I'm saying this with the most highly respect in the world, with all the respect, and I'm looking at you very serious. Were people just naive back then, or it was just easy to get you like, let's get the herd together and let's, get him into the slaughterhouse? Was it simple? Do you think that same attack, they can do it today in 2025, or they can do it better today? It's better? Can they do it better today? Because it was so simple. People went to the Federal Reserve to give up all their belongings, People were hungry, happy to have a job. Okay, see that? What was it, I mean, because I still think about it, I say, man, these people walk like sheeps, to the slaughterhouse and just, gave it up. Dr. E, Dr. D. Damon, Mr. Blair, Mr. Pete, I want you to give up your AP, your Rolex, take it off and give it, to the Federal Reserve, You understand me? I wonder, because my mind is crazy. I think about these things. I say, pero coño, how? Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Thank you. And I think about it because I'm that kind of a person that I sit down and I say, coño, 1933, 2025, were people that, but somebody right now show me something. People were hungry. People were happy to have a job. That makes sense. It does make sense. But my question today, will they be able to do that same execution? Will they be able to do that same execution? Or it will have to be strong arm? Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. You know what I'm trying to say? You understand me? You know what I'm trying to say? Is it today different? Do they knock on your door and they take you? I didn't do nothing. It's Kino. Kino did it, not me, It's unbelievable what's happening out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, I'm spilling here my thoughts to you guys. I need your help. I need your help. Because I see something. I see, oh, wow, look at that. Read what that gentleman just put down. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying, how can that be? How can somebody, and then tell you now, I was saving this part. I'm getting to the ending of this chapter, because I want to get to the ending for my own health, my own sanity, So right now it's at $3,477. Y esos those lambones come up to you now and say, we know you have all this gold, and we're going to give you for your gold, you might see that $3,477. Here comes the punchline, boys. Here comes the punchline. But we're going to give you $960. That's all we have. Bobby, there'll be garbage cans burning in the streets. And I don't know. I'm just trying to, Allegedly, I'm not saying that this is for real. I'm just saying that because this is crazy. That can happen. They tell you, they told Mr. Mr. Blake. When I was sitting today I was having lunch with those guys, those guys that have all that gold. And I started talking to them, and you know what they tell me? They told me, Juan, where do you get this imagination from? I said, it's not an imagination. If you look in history and you read, history repeats itself. Am I saying a lie? History repeats itself. History. And they're looking at me like I have 50 heads because these people have had the luxury that they have the capital to do what they want. I don't have that capital, but I have my knowledge. Thank you very much, Julio, for that super chat. Thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, Julio. Agradecido un millón from Miami, Julio. Thank you so much. So they look at me like, where do you get this from? And I tell them, I said, man, read. It's all there. These people, they're from Brazil, some of my friends are from Brazil, some from Venezuela, Puerto Rico, etc., Italia. And since they don't know, maybe they don't hear our history, they don't know. So I tell them, and they, you know what they even asked me? They even asked me, pero tú estás jodiendo, are you bullshitting us? And I said, no, I'm not bullshitting you. He said, but how can that be? What do you mean, how can it be? How did that guy in Germany did what he did? I was another savage, right? The guy from Germany, that guy over there too, right? But I know about that history. I read it. I know how many souls were lost. So I'm telling them, and they don't really comprehend. Is that the word? Sí, no comprenden. Comprehend, And I tried telling them. I said, listen, man, these people that they have it down pat. And if they listen to me, Papi, if those guys decide to do something, I honestly believe, like Dr. E said, it's not gonna be easy, It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be like in 1933, because I'm telling you, man, something had to happen at that moment, and they just gave it all up, and they were happy with what they were giving them, and there was no questions asked, and everything was cool. And it hasn't happened since 1933 and 1937 this and 1970 this. It's their control. It's all control. But the numbers that you're seeing today in gold, they're scary. They're very, very scary, Bobby. They're very scary, man. $3,477 an ounce is scary. When you hear the public saying, right now, and I told you this yesterday, those guys, those Michiganders that I was talking to today in lunch, and I told them that this can happen, those people have a bunch of bars, a bunch of bars away. And they can go right now with what they have, and they can make a couple of melons, right? A couple of melons. But these people are waiting for something, a number that is even more scary. They're waiting for $26,000 a troy ounce. $26,000 a troy ounce. You know what that is? An ounce. $26,000 of pure gold. It's crazy. So they're over there in Pennsylvania having like this. The ICA is thinking, what do we do? Should we call Kino? Maybe Kino can help us out. I got 29 subscribers and 20 thumbs up. I have 9 lambones just hearing me. Just hearing me only. For free. For free only. And then when I say it, they run. They run to the hills. Se van como unas locas. But this is what it is. You see, look what that gentleman just put down. $26,000 will be chaos. Papi, 3,477, I am telling you, is scary. It's scary. It is very scary. Now, imagine what this gentleman said. $26,000 will be chaos. Patá por la nalga con todo el mundo. Ping, pa, cha, fu, fi, fa. I'm telling you. Kino, hold me back. Kino, hold me back. Kino, anda para atrás. Anda para atrás. Ahí está. Suéltame, Kino. Let me go, Kino. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. I'm on fire today, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I am on fire. Robbery everywhere. Papi. And the reason I'm telling you this because it's ya se puede hueler, you know? You can smell it already, you know? And exactly, I haven't even started my watch market update. I'm gonna be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be honest with you guys because I know that this is something that you need to, know about, You need to know about this. You guys need to know about this because nobody's gonna tell you. Those people, all those watch dealers, all those watch dealers, the Walrus, the Hippo, Boxing Black Eyes, Jiminy Cricket, you know what I'm saying? Big Pun and Heavy D, the two Toddler Body Brothers, you understand me? They all know all this, they know what's going on. And they're watching from far away. They're watching, Papi. They're watching. They're watching. And everybody else is watching. If you think that people are not watching this, they're watching it carefully. Every single day, people are looking at prices of gold, the way it's behaving, Papi. And it's behaving. I have a question for Dr. E. Is gold standing, standing strong? I'm asking, okay, the question is for all of you. Is gold standing strong? Una locura, brother. Una locura. Jumbo juice. I'm asking you guys, is it standing strong? Is it standing firm? I'm still stacking. Papi, I'm telling you this. I'm telling you, Ed, this is crazy. It's crazy. Gold will drop with the market crash, temporary. Okay. I think the more the situation in the world goes belly up, the more gold is gonna go up, and it's gonna just keep on going to the sky. Listen to me. I don't see this anytime soon. Getting. I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon. Not right now. I don't see it. There was too many things happening with the Corona beer. It all started with the Corona beer. That Corona beer. People were going crazy with the Corona beer. Yeah, exactly. Better. But I'm just trying to give you a lead of what's happening. If you guys didn't hear what I said earlier when I first started the show, I'm going to say it one more time. We had a president here by the name of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And D stand for Delano, like the Delano Hotel in Collins Avenue, Miami Beach. And Hoover and Roosevelt were doing, they were doing the transition, from president to president. They were, I'm giving you the power now, but before Hoover told Roosevelt, listen, man, we should do this because we have crisis in the world. Estamos jodidos, it's bad crisis, we don't have no money, and President Roosevelt, Delano, he told him, no, I don't agree with you. So before, Hoover left, he said, well, I'm gonna leave this in a chaos for this SOB. I'm gonna leave it in a chaos for him. I'm gonna give it to him now. So, everything went, upside down, and then when Roosevelt came in, he said, oh man, what happened here? You didn't listen to Hoover, so this is what you got now. And then those people, they told him, you need to do this right away. We need to get the economy back in this country again. You know what I'm saying, Thomas. If you know something, Thomas, please feel free to say it. Because me, myself, when I call you guys a dumpski, I'm the number one dumpski. I'm the number one tomato can. And I'm the number one window licker, cow tipper, possum kicker, crayon eater. You understand me? You know what I'm saying? Sandbag, crumb bum. I'm that. So whatever you guys want to say, you can say it. The only thing that I do in life is read all alone. I told my wife, let me read. Let me read this. This is how I became a better husband, by reading. You know what I'm saying? It's unbelievable. I try to tell you this. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been live in this podcast for 58 minutes, for 59 minutes, and I feel good. I don't feel like giving you guys a watch market update because, I have dropped a lot of things for you guys, for free, truth bombs, like Dr. E is saying, it's unbelievable, that Dr. Evil, and I always wanna thank, all of you guys, all you organic subscribers for being here, being this channel. I try hard, I make it funny for you guys, but I'm telling you, listen to me, ladies. I can't stop, man. Listen, I knew over there in July when all those people went to the summer camp. Those political people from the government, they have a summer camp. Like my grandchildren went to, beach, camp, surfing camp, hockey camp. They did all these camps. My grandchildren, I got three. I got three boys. My last name will continue on, It will continue. I got three boys, unbelievable. And I'm telling you, those people had a summer camp over there, up in the mountains, and they had their salute dial. I'm telling you, I want to go one day. I want to go one day and sit there, and I want to put una bata, a tunic in my head and sit down, and probably I'll be sitting next to Gerald Ford. It's unbelievable, these people, what they think over there. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, it's all been planned out. It's all been planned out. Everything has been planned out, and everything is ready in every corner. This, I'm telling you for real, ladies and gentlemen, if in 1933, with the radio, probably they had the radio, the TV was black and white. If they did have I don't know what they had, I don't know what they had, but they did that. That was an execution, man. An execution. These people were left homeless. But somebody told me by the name of Thomas. There he is again. He told me, Thomas told me that back then people were happy to have a plate of supper, food, They were happy to have a job, They were happy to have a pair of shoes, a pair of Wrangler jeans, Levi jeans. I don't know what they had, And they were very happy to have all that. And they didn't care. They just, okay, because there was respect. If my government is asking for my help, I must help my government. And by helping my government, I'm going to take off my wedding band and I'm going to give it to the Federal Reserve because they need it. It's unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't, people today are skip hopping around through life, thinking about the Kardashians, Have you ever heard of the guy with the gasoline? The guy that invented plastic and gasoline, he will melt the plastic. I never heard from that guy again, I'm telling you can't play with these owners of the world. The owners of the world have everything. They think for us, man. They think for us. They don't want critical thinkers. They don't want nobody in their club. They don't want nobody in their club. They have a big line of people that want to join their club. They're ready to drink pee and eat poop. They don't need no more. They don't need no more, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you things the way they are. I hope I didn't bore you with this. I hope I did not bore you with this, but I feel that, you guys needed to hear this, Wow. Wow. Wow, $12 loaf of wow in Brooklyn. I'm telling you, what's happening out there, Papa, is thank you, Ed. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's you guys have to be. This is why the only way I can get to you guys to think why I tell you guys, listen, guys, you know, stop giving away your children's tuition money. That means stop giving away your money is what it means. You know, I say stop giving your children's tuition money, stop giving away your 401k, your wife's 401k, but in reality, what I'm telling you is stop giving away your money, man. Things are not good right now, man. Don't think for a moment because gold is going up that things are good. No, 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 no. When gold goes up, la situación está jodida. La situación está caótica, kayak. You know, if you guys are lucky that you guys cut a check every week, good for you guys. But there's people out there, they're not cutting a check, you know? Everybody, exactly. Wow. Good for you, Dr. E. That's what it means, man. That's what it means. You know, it really means that. You know, things are getting tough out there, and people are not really seeing it because you know we are being bombarded by social media, by all these different channels that that we all like to look at, but it's a distraction to get us get us to believe that everything is Tom, Dick, and Harry, and it's not. It's not Tom, Dick, and Harry. You're gonna get you're gonna get this is what you're gonna get. Guys, this has been fun to be honest, and I think that I'll give you a watch market, another day, and I hope that I made a lot of sense. And again, if you guys did not hear me, I'm gonna tell you that's been the biggest heist in U.S. history. That's been the biggest heist in U.S. history. I'm telling you, Papi, the biggest heist in U.S. history. Everybody turning in their gold, their gold coins, gold bullions, certificate notes, just turning it all in. And then they put the price that they decided that it was. And you were never going to buy it again because the note they gave you was for $20.67. That's the note they gave you. It's unbelievable. I hope I made sense. I explained myself the best that I could. I really hope that I did explain myself the best that I could. I'm not a perfect, one of those YouTube experts, but I try my best to, reach you guys. I really do from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank all of you for being here. Man, I'm telling you, we've been here for an hour and 7 minutes talking about this. And that's, me alone. I don't have, no help. I think I do pretty good, right? By doing it by myself. I drink a lot of jungle juice while I'm doing it, But I think Kino is very quiet, Sweet Kino, it's unbelievable, I told you this, Kino. At one moment, he used to, I told him already he needs to stop doing that already because, a 19%, which I thought a THC 90% was off the charts. But little did I know that it was at 30 and at 37% and even a 92.2%. So he's now relaxing now. He's drinking now a little bit of Pinch and Chivas, and Walker, and he's good to go, Anyway, guys, first of all, I want to thank all of you for being in the show. All of you for being here. That's the most important thing. Without you guys, I can't do no show. So I want to thank all of you. Second of all, thank you so much for all of you who are supporting, who have support this channel. That means all of you. All of you. All of you here, you're supporting the channel. Thank you so much for all that. I'm thinking of pretty soon, for the holidays and Christmas. I really mean this, buying a new phone, with a microphone because they're telling me that I need to get a microphone. I don't know. I think you guys hear me fine because, you guys are all here, So I'm thinking about doing that too. Right, guys? Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Stay cool, stay right, stay thinking, be a critical thinker. No sean lambón y palomo, be a critical thinker, right? Don't be a dumbski. Anyway, guys, take care and brush your hair. Good night. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Ed. Thank you, Mr. D. Thank you, Mr. Dr. E. Thank you, Pete. If I'm missing anybody, thank you, Franco. Ciao, Franco. Buonasera, Alex. Un abrazo. Alex, I gave you a watch market update on your watch, or your date, yesterday at 36 with the ombre dial. I hope you got it, okay? Ciao.